It took me 2 years to learn babies are resilient. Stop walking on eggshells. You know that moment when your baby rolls off the bed for the first time? That heart-stopping, world-ending panic where you're convinced you've just traumatized them for life? I've been there. 3 times, actually, with each of my children. And each time, I was certain I'd just won the Worst Mother of the Year award. For 2 whole years after having my first child, I tiptoed around my house like I was constantly walking through a minefield. I sanitized everything 3 times over. I whispered when he was sleeping from across the house. I checked his breathing so often, I'm surprised I didn't wake him up more. I avoided certain foods completely because I read somewhere they might cause allergies. I felt like one wrong move could irreparably damage this precious little human I was responsible for. But here's what I've learned after raising 3 children and working with hundreds of families. Babies are incredibly, amazingly resilient. They're designed that way. And all that walking on eggshells? It was exhausting me. And, believe it or not actually helping my baby thrive. In developmental psychology, there's this fascinating concept called good enough parenting that was introduced by a pediatrician named Donald Winnicott back in the 1950s. After observing thousands of mother-infant relationships, he concluded something revolutionary. Perfect parenting isn't just impossible, it's not even ideal. Babies actually benefit from experiencing small, manageable challenges and watching us recover from our mistakes. I wish someone had sat me down and explained this when I was a new mother. It would have saved me so much anxiety. Remember when I mentioned my baby rolling off the bed? With my first child, I cried longer than he did. I called the pediatrician in a panic. I monitored him for concussion symptoms for days. By my 3rd child, I still felt that heart-dropping moment of fear, checked her over carefully, comforted her, and then we both moved on. Because I'd finally internalized that babies truly are built to withstand the normal bumps and bruises of childhood. Let me tell you about my son's first fever. He was about 7 months old, and his temperature hit 102 degrees Fahrenheit. I was beside myself with worry, convinced this was the beginning of something terrible. I spent the entire night researching rare diseases online, which, as you can imagine, only made my anxiety worse. But when morning came and his fever broke after some infant Tylenol and rest, I realized something. His body knew exactly what to do. That fever was his immune system working, not failing. It was doing its job perfectly. Now, I'm not saying we should be careless or neglectful. There's a huge difference between recognizing resilience and being negligent. What I am saying is that we can stop treating our babies like they're made of glass. When my daughter was learning to walk, she fell. A lot. Sometimes on carpet, sometimes on hardwood. Each time she'd look up at me, and here's what I learned matters most in those moments: my reaction. If I gasped dramatically and rushed over with panic all over my face, she'd burst into tears. But if I smiled encouragingly and said, "Oops, you're okay. Try again," she'd usually giggle and pull herself back up. Our babies are constantly looking to us to understand how to interpret the world. When we act like every small setback is a disaster, that's exactly what they learn. When we demonstrate resilience ourselves, they internalize that too. One of the most liberating parenting books I ever read was The Blessing of a Skinned Knee by Mogel. She talks about how overprotecting our children actually robs them of the opportunity to develop confidence and competence. When we hover over them, anticipating their every need and removing all obstacles, we're unintentionally sending the message that we don't believe they can handle challenges. I started implementing this wisdom when my second child was about 6 months old. I let him struggle a bit to reach a toy just beyond his grasp. I watched him get frustrated, then problem solve, then experience the joy of achievement when he finally got it. That moment of pride on his face was priceless, and it never would have happened if I'd immediately handed him the toy. The science backs this up too. Studies in neurodevelopment show that babies' brains actually grow stronger through encountering and overcoming manageable stress. It's like exercise for the brain, the key word being manageable. We're not talking about neglect or abuse, which are genuinely harmful. We're talking about the everyday challenges that help build neural pathways for resilience. Here's what changed for me around the 2-year mark of being a mother. I started trusting my baby's signals more than my own fears. When he cried, I'd pause before reacting. Was this the I'm hurt cry or a I'm frustrated but figuring it out cry? Learning that distinction was incredibly freeing. When we were introducing solid foods, I used to puree everything to the consistency of water. I was terrified of choking. But then I learned about baby-led weaning and the developing research showing that babies can handle more textured foods than we give them credit for. Watching my baby confidently gnaw on a piece of steamed carrot was both nerve-wracking and liberating. Sleep was another huge area where I had to learn to step back. With my first child, I would rush in at the slightest whimper. I never gave him the chance to self-soothe. With my later children, I learned to wait a beat. Often, they'd settle themselves back down without my intervention. They were learning valuable self-regulation skills that my first child had fewer opportunities to practice. About 6 months in with my second baby, I had a moment of clarity while talking to my grandmother. She raised 6 children in a time before baby monitors, hand sanitizer, and the internet. We didn't have time to worry so much, she told me. And somehow, you all turned out just fine. It struck me then how much of my anxiety was uniquely modern, fed by comparison culture, information overload, and the pressure to be a perfect parent. The reality is, babies throughout human history have survived and thrived with far fewer resources and knowledge than we have today. Their resilience isn't new. Our overwhelming worry is. So what am I suggesting? Am I saying we should all just relax and let whatever happens happen? Not exactly. What I am advocating for is conscious, informed relaxation, being knowledgeable about actual danger signs while giving ourselves and our babies grace for the small stuff. Here's what that might look like in practice. When your baby falls while learning to walk, resist the urge to gasp dramatically. Offer a calm, "You're okay," and see if they can recover on their own before rushing in. When introducing new foods, remember that gagging is actually a protective reflex different from choking. It looks scary, but it's your baby's way of learning to manage food safely. When your baby gets their first fever, know the guidelines for when to call the doctor, but also remember that fever is a healthy immune response. When sleep training feels impossible, remind yourself that one difficult night, or even several, won't cause lasting harm to a securely attached baby. And perhaps most importantly, when you make a mistake, because you will, we all do, model resilience for your child by forgiving yourself and moving forward. I often think about this quote from pediatrician Dr. Benjamin Spock. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. Your instincts as a parent are powerful. Sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is quiet the noise of outside opinions long enough to hear your own wisdom. So if you're in that phase where you're walking on eggshells around your baby, exhausting yourself, trying to create a perfect environment, I want you to know it gets better. Your baby is stronger than you think, and so are you. For those of you who want more practical strategies on building resilience in your little ones, I've created a comprehensive guide on the developmental stages where resilience is built. It includes age-appropriate ways to help your child develop this crucial life skill from infancy through toddlerhood. You can download it from the link in the description below. Much love to you and your resilient little ones. See you in the next video.